Hey everyone, I'm the Canadian Lad, aka your personal nerd, and today I bring to you the main breakdown of Deadpool and Wolverine Part 1. That's right, I've decided to divide the entire 2-hour movie into 3 segments, and in each segment I will be breaking down 40 minutes of the movie. I only ever had to make separate parts when I caught hidden details that were too much to fit into one single video. I did it for Spider-Man No Way Home, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and now Deadpool and Wolverine. So that automatically tells you the amount of hidden details and Easter eggs I've discovered in this one. I've already seen the film 6 times in theaters and might catch it once more before I wrap up the final part. Why? Because every time I go, I try to look for hidden details in specific scenes, jotting down notes using shorthand that only I can decipher. And once all 3 parts are released, I might even share a photo of my notepad showing you lads the rough notes I took while watching this film in theaters. Okay, so enough talking, let's dive into part 1 of our scene-by-scene breakdown of Deadpool and Wolverine. The movie opens with the usual Marvel intro, but Deadpool replaces the footage where we usually see the Avengers flying in their time travel costume. It's a shot from Deadpool 1 where Colossus gets punched by angel dust, and then Wade Wilson quickly intervenes into the logo music itself and starts humming along with it. But notice, instead of the usual red background behind the Marvel logo, we now see the fabric of Deadpool's suit smeared with blood, instantly preparing the audience that this isn't gonna be our usual PG-13 Marvel movie. We then see Deadpool in the woods, and Wade says, "We promised we won't dishonor Logan's memory, but guess what? We lied." And we immediately come to realize that this scene is taking place in the same place where Logan was buried at the end of the movie Logan. We see Deadpool digging up the grave of the deceased Logan, and a white mug right by it that says, "I like me," which is actually the mug that Deadpool stole off of this TVA agent. Now Deadpool says Wolverine is not supposed to die because that's not how regenerative healing factors work. And as soon as he says it, we hear Deadpool's shovel making a clunking noise, indicating Deadpool has found the body of Logan. This clanking is a callback to Wolverine's introduction in the first X-Men film, where he was similarly introduced with the metal clanking sound. We see Deadpool sitting beside Logan's decomposed skeleton, and if you notice, his adamantium skeleton still has the tree branch that X-24 slammed him into, as well as fragments of his white vest and boots. The TVA agents arrive, and the song Bye 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 from NSYNC starts playing in the background. Notice how they removed Wolverine's skeleton from the trailer, and even the shot where Deadpool grabs the head and hides it with him. Wait! Deadpool dances in the exact same choreography as the boy band while violently taking down every single TVA agent. Now let's break down this spectacular intro, which might just be one of the best in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Deadpool jumps in the air in the exact same way as he did in the first movie, but this time along with Wolverine's skeleton. He pulls bones from Logan's remains and uses them to fight off the TVA agents. The way the opening credits roll here is just sheer brilliance. For instance, when the opening credits show us the name of Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool first jabs a bone into a TVA agent's head, kicks it, and as the bone exits the other side, Ryan's name is displayed on it. And to top it all off, Deadpool adds a playful touch with his signature waving dance move, leaning back and gazing directly at the camera. Deadpool uses the spine or the vertebrae attached to the skull and uses it as a nunchuck to beat the TVA soldiers with it. Now notice the skeleton itself never tears or breaks apart because it's made out of adamantium. However, when we see the credits of Hugh Jackman, a tooth does fall out because the teeth are not adamantium. Now that's what I call attention to detail. Deadpool then kicks the adamantium skull and says Maradona from outside the box. Now if you're a soccer fan, you'd get this reference immediately, as Maradona was a legendary player from Argentina who was not only one of the best but is known for one of the goals that is called the Hand of God. Ryan Reynolds himself owns a soccer team, Wrexham FC, so it's pretty fitting that he would reference someone like Maradona. Now one attention to detail that really caught my mind is some of the bones of Wolverine aren't as sharp as the other ones. So what Deadpool does is he uses the bones with sharp edges as blades, slicing through the TVA agents. And the ones with blunt edges, for example this one, he uses them as batons and just hits them with it with incredible force. This goes to show the incredible action choreography that went behind this whole scene. And notice whatever action that's happening on screen actually intervenes with the credits itself. For example, in this shot where Deadpool makes his sexiest move with his hips, his gun moves away from his body, tipping the letters P and A from Paul Wernick's name, who is one of the writers. This happens throughout the opening credits. One of my favorite moves Deadpool makes here is this one. A jab to the right knee, another to the left knee, completely incapacitating this TVA agent. But he doesn't stop there. Stabs him in the stomach, slams a bone into his chin, jumps in the air, and instead of using his stronger foot, he kicks him with his weaker one. Then he lands smoothly in a split, and as he rises, he positions the TVA agent's face upward before throwing a final decisive spinning kick on the head to finish the fight. Now in the final shot, Deadpool puts on the claws of Wolverine, and to do that, he literally uses the blood vessels and nerves as a strap. This whole intro is just next level. Never seen anything like it, and I doubt I'll see anything like this in a long time. Deadpool then takes us to a flashback to explain why he was digging up Wolverine's grave in the first place. And the first stop is on March 14th, 2018, inside Happy Hogan's office at the Avengers compound in the Sacred Timeline, aka Earth 616. So Wade, who belongs to Earth 10005, has traveled to Earth 616, meaning his wristwatch that allows him to time travel also lets him jump to different timelines from the multiverse, not just within his own timeline. And yes, this is the same time machine that Wade got from Cable at the end of Deadpool 2. And if you notice, the watch now glows when it's in active use, whereas previously in Deadpool 2, when Wade used it to go back in the past, it never glowed. This goes to show Wade made some changes to the device, which now allows him to completely jump between universes. Now Wade came here for an interview to join the Avengers, and even asks Happy whether Mr. Stark will be here.
I feel like I'm wasting the good stuff here. Is the man not going to be joining us?
The man?
Yeah, I should save this if he's gonna.
He doesn't do this kind of thing anymore.
Cameos?
Meetings.
And that indicates that this has taken place before the events of Avengers Infinity War. Now inside Happy Hogan's office, we have a bunch of Easter eggs and hidden details. Right off the bat, we see this Captain America prototype shield from Iron Man 2, a Forbes magazine featuring Pepper Potts on the front page that we saw in Iron Man 3, Agent Coulson's collection of Captain America cards, the same cards that Nick Fury used to motivate Tony Stark and Steve Rogers in Avengers 1. So it seems like Tony kept it and then gave it to Happy to put it in his office. And funnily enough, in the promos, they actually removed this card collection set, probably because they didn't want to spoil that this interview takes place before the events of Infinity War. Right beside the cards, we see this Iron Man helmet, which is probably Mark II, the swinging sticks that Pepper had on her desk, which annoyed the hell out of Tony Stark in Iron Man 2, the original arc reactor from the very first Iron Man movie, the framed photo of Tony Stark presenting Peter Parker with a Stark internship certificate, but Peter's face is covered with this Iron Man helmet toy because Marvel would need to pay compensation to Sony for any use of Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the MCU. So no, it's not because of the events of Spider-Man No Way Home as some people are speculating on the internet. Because the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, where Doctor Strange makes everyone forget Peter Parker, still didn't happen in 2018. Now this helmet is from Iron Man 2, where we saw a kid wearing it at the Stark Expo. Kevin Feige later confirmed that this was indeed a young Peter Parker. This helmet being here, as well as this photo, goes to show that Tony and Happy really cared about Peter right from the beginning. Because remember, this scene is taking place after the events of Civil War, so right after they all met. Now Happy tells Wade that becoming an Avenger isn't about needing it, but about being needed. And as Happy and Wade start walking towards the door, we see a few more Easter eggs on the shelves in the background. First one being this Iron Man Mark V briefcase from Iron Man 2, which till this day is still one of the coolest Iron Man suits in the MCU. We also see this broken Iron Man helmet, which to me looks like one of the helmets that Ultron destroyed in Avengers Age of Ultron. And last but not least, we see the Stark Expo poster from 1954. Now the whole point of this interview of Wade Wilson trying to join the Avengers is he wants to do something to prove to his girlfriend Vanessa that what he does matters. Otherwise Vanessa will basically go her separate way. And if you think about it, since the events of Deadpool 1, Wade has continuously put Vanessa at risk. And she even died in Deadpool 2. Although Wade did prevent her death by traveling back in time, but Vanessa remains endangered by any sort of association with him. Thus, Wade's goal is to show he can contribute in a meaningful way. But despite his efforts, his request to join the Avengers is ultimately denied. And if you think even deeper, Tony Stark invented the time machine in the Sacred Timeline in 2023 to bring back everyone after the snap. But here back in 2018, Wade Wilson was probably just a few miles away from Tony Stark with the time machine literally on his wrist. So either Happy never told Tony about this meeting, or Wade never told Happy that he's from a different universe. Cut to 6 years later on Earth 10005, Wade's original and actual timeline. timeline. We find that Wade has abandoned his Deadpool persona and now works for DriveMax, a company that sells pre-owned cars. And notice inside his locker there's a book titled The Canadian Mounted, a recurring item in the Deadpool series. Rob Delaney comes back as Peter and tries his best to convince Wade to get back into action as Deadpool, but Wade insists he's done with being Deadpool. Later, as they head home, Wade has a sense that he's being watched. Of course, we know this was the TVA, but the hidden detail in this scene is actually in the background score. Because this is the same street where Deadpool and Wolverine later take on the entire Deadpool Corps, and there we hear the official Deadpool anthem by Rob Simonson for the first time, which sounds amazing by the way. And here, when Wade senses someone watching him, a hint of this anthem plays in the background, foreshadowing the big fight that will take place here.
Right next to a huge steaming bowl of foreshadowing.
Cut to inside Wade's apartment where his whole family and friends throw him a surprise birthday party, but one funny detail that I noticed on my third watch is that Depender really struggles to pull his party popper. Only Depender and Shatterstar had party poppers on their hands, but Depender being Depender never manages to pull it properly. We learn that Wade and Vanessa are no longer seeing each other, and Vanessa is apparently dating a guy called Dermot. I mean, what can I say? Zeb Wells is one of the writers of this movie, so anyway, now Wade blows on the candles and the TVA agents arrive. I really like how the TVA hunters get caught completely off guard by Wade's reaction because he initially thinks they're strippers that Depender ordered.
Is that supposed to be scary? Pegging isn't new for me, friendo, but it is for Disney.
Wade is then taken to the TVA and we meet Mr. Paradox. Wade asks if he was apprehended because he used Cable's time machine to bring some people back to life. But Mr. Paradox quickly says that's not the reason they brought him here. Paradox shows Wade footage from the Sacred Timeline, aka the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We see footage of Cap from the first Avengers movie, Cap wielding Mjolnir in Endgame, and Cap during World War II. The money shot from Civil War, Cap giving a salute, Wanda Maximoff from Civil War, Black Panther from Civil War, and then the camera pans out as Wade salutes Cap, and we see more Captain America footage. Cap fighting Batroc from Winter Soldier, Cap landing with his shield right after destroying a shield Quinjet, Steve's final moments with Bucky, and the final 3 screens show footage from Endgame, Age of Ultron, and Civil War airport battle. Now I want you to focus on this particular footage that they chose to showcase here. This scene from Endgame is known for all the wrong reasons because this is a mistake that they kept in the movie. When Black Panther was running with the Nano Gauntlet, Scott Lang's Giant Man was fighting in the background, but he shouldn't be able to do so because Scott at that point had already shrunk to his regular size and was inside the minivan with Hope. So I think Marvel is trying to tell us something here. Perhaps this Giant Man was really not supposed to be here and that's why he was pruned, who we ultimately see in the Void as Cassandra Nova's compound. This could be Marvel's way of fixing a mistake that they made in Endgame, because why choose this particular scene out of all the baddest moments from Endgame? There has to be a reason. We then see Deadpool dying in the arms of Thor, which essentially is a re-edited scene from Thor: The Dark World. There, Thor was wearing full sleeves, but here they removed it and CGI'd his hands. Not only that, none of the expressions of Chris Hemsworth match with the scene from Thor: The Dark World, meaning they pulled a cut from the archive. They kept Thor's wound on the forehead the same as it was, but added another cut slicing through his right eye, and changed the color of this eye to ensure continuity post-Infinity War. And it seems they color graded the scene again since Thor's face appears much brighter than it did in Dark World. Now why is Thor crying, and why is Deadpool missing half of his mask? Paradox says, let's not get ahead of ourselves, this is something that happens in the distant future. So this could be Marvel planting a seed that will pay off in Avengers Secret Wars. And if you notice, Deadpool is bleeding from his head here, and that is probably why he's missing half of his mask. So something really terrible might happen to Wade in the future. Paradox offers Wade the chance to join the Sacred Timeline and fulfill his dream to be an Avenger. But of course, there's a catch. Wade's universe is on the brink of collapse due to the death of its anchor being, Logan. And in the words of Paradox, an anchor being is an entity of such vital importance that when they die, their whole world slowly withers out of existence. And it usually takes a couple of thousand years for a universe to fade. So it shouldn't be a problem for Deadpool since none of his friends or family will be alive by then. But Paradox plans to accelerate this process to less than 72 hours because he believes in the old method of the TVA of just pruning these timelines instead of letting them perish naturally. He wants to show the TVA that they can become much more efficient efficient, he basically wants a promotion at the cost of killing billions. Now, one attention to detail that I really appreciate from this scene is when Paradox shows footage of Logan, his tempad is designed very accurately this time, as opposed to the Loki series where characters were just randomly pressing buttons on the tempad. Now, tempads are devices that all the TVA members use to essentially execute their powers. Notice on Paradox's tempad, it says footage, miss minutes, settings, directory, and some action list. Number 4 is a run program, and Mr. Paradox presses 4 on the keypad. May not seem like a big detail, but if you've seen Hollywood movies long enough, you know how randomly they use keyboards in movies. Except for Marvel, they always pay attention to detail and make sure that keypads are used in realistic manner as much as possible. And notice when Paradox shows Wade footage of Logan's final moments, the screen on the left was showing a more recent version of it. This was before he died, and this is after he was buried, with the tree branch forming the letter X. Paradox then reveals a machine that he's building called the Time Ripper, which will accelerate the process of killing Deadpool's universe. He gives Deadpool 2 choices: either join his loved ones and cease to exist in less than 72 hours, or join the sacred timeline and live as a hero. And during this moment, Paradox conveniently put up footage from the first Avengers movie, where all the Avengers assembled for the very first time, highlighting the opportunity Wade has to join their ranks as long as he gives up everyone he ever cared about. This triggers Deadpool as he steals Paradox's tempad and teleports to Logan's grave, hoping Logan's regenerative abilities might prevent his death. However, after digging up the grave, Deadpool discovers Logan is truly dead, and that's how we learn why Deadpool was digging up Logan's grave at the beginning of the movie. And here Deadpool makes a joke referencing the Will Smith moment from the Oscars. After this TVA agent insults Deadpool, saying he's the worst thing to come out of Canada, Deadpool responds by saying, "Get my country's name out of your f***ing mouth."
Keep my wife's name out your
Go f yourself.
Deadpool then decides to travel to multiple other timelines to find the perfect match of Wolverine. And here we have some of the best Easter eggs in all of comic book movies. The first Wolverine variant that Deadpool comes across is this short King Wolverine. One of the most frequent criticisms of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine is that he's 6'2", while Wolverine is about 5'3" in the comics. So this is a direct reference to the comic accurate Wolverine, who's very short. What I like about this is that they added extra body hair on Hugh Jackman to make it more believable. Otherwise, this whole CGI would have looked so much more goofy. The second variant is Weapon Omega. Deadpool finds him in an alley who only has one hand and a big bushy beard. This is straight out of Marvel's classic Age of Apocalypse crossover. First introduced in X-Men Alpha #1, Weapon Omega is an evil version of Wolverine, who was part of Magneto's X-Men, lost a hand in a fight with Cyclops, and later became a tyrant after defeating Apocalypse. Next is Patch, one of my personal favorites. He wears a white suit and an eye patch while going undercover. Now, Patch is set in Madripoor in the comics, and judging by the set design here, it does look like MCU's Madripoor that we saw in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Next, we see Old Man Logan wearing a cowboy hat who literally shoots Deadpool with his shotgun and makes a hole in his belly. Deadpool then meets this Wolverine who's been crucified on this giant yellow X surrounded by a bed of skulls. And there's rain and thunderstorms, completely recreating one of the most famous comic book covers of all time, precisely Mark Silvestri's cover art from Uncanny X-Men issue 251 from 1989. Next, we see this classic John Byrne's Wolverine in a brown tan costume, and as soon as he unsheathed his claws, we can see the reflection of Hulk in his claws. Another recreation of Todd McFarlane's cover from 1987's The Incredible Hulk issue 340. Now, surprisingly enough, Wolverine was never introduced in his own comic. Instead, he made his comic book debut as a cameo in The Incredible Hulk issue 180, and there he fought this Green Goliath. So I was correct with my theory video that we may just see Hulk appearing in the movie, albeit for a brief moment. And notice the last thing Deadpool says to Hulk is, "I'm Marvel Jesus, you dull creature," before being thrown into a tree. This is a reference to what Loki said to Hulk in Avengers 1.
Enough! You are all of you beneath me. I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
So lesson 101, never call Hulk a dull creature. And the last variant we see is Henry Cavill, who Deadpool calls the Cavalrine. Henry plays this muscular, gigantic variant of Wolverine, smoking a cigar while working on his bike. Deadpool jokes about treating him better than the shit down the street, a clear jab at DC, who quite honestly didn't treat Henry Cavill with the respect he deserves. Now my favorite detail here is Cavill's unique claw unleashing move that is totally different from Hugh Jackman's. Henry Cavill, while filming Mission Impossible Fallout, did this arm reload thing to basically warm up his hands before throwing a punch, but Tom Cruise loved it so much that he kept it in the movie.
We looked at that over and over in rushes in the editing room. We're going, how did you do that, Henry? Okay, he is so talented.
And now Henry pulls off the same move in this movie while unleashing his claws as Wolverine. I'm pretty sure Ryan or Sean told him to do this because it adds a uniqueness to his version of Wolverine. And with this punch, Deadpool teleports to a bar in Canada where he meets this variant of Wolverine who's very drunk and has given up on life altogether. Unlike the other variants, this Wolverine doesn't attack Deadpool immediately. Deadpool brings him back to the TVA and says, "On your left, baby girl," a callback to Captain America the Winter Soldier. Now this is the first time we officially see Wolverine in his blue and yellow comic accurate costume. And Paradox says you cannot just replace an anchor being, bringing this variant won't solve anything, let alone this variant who's the worst Wolverine, because he let down his entire world. And Hugh Jackman's acting here is just phenomenal. Anyway, Paradox reveals that the only reason he's trying to spare Deadpool from his ultimate demise is because his superiors deem Deadpool as someone very special with a pivotal role in the future. And Deadpool questions if this is why Thor was holding him. And Paradox's lack of denial confirms that Deadpool will indeed be crucial in Avengers Secret Wars and will likely develop a significant relationship with Thor. Now, who exactly are the superiors that Paradox is referring to here? It has to be Loki, because after becoming the god of stories, the protector of the multiverse, Loki essentially knows everything. Now, while Deadpool is in the middle of a conversation with Paradox, Wolverine wakes up and stands behind him, which is a callback to this scene from Deadpool 2.
He's standing right behind you, isn't he?
Paradox then prunes both of them to the Void, and the first Easter egg we see in the Void is this Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars comic, issue number 5 from 2015, featuring Dr. Doom on the cover. The concept of anchor beings actually originated from this comic, where Molecule Man placed versions of himself in each universe as anchor beings. Dr. Doom and Molecule Man attempted to eliminate these anchor beings to prevent the multiverse's collapse, but they soon realized it's not going to work. So instead of killing the anchor beings, Doom captured them to absorb the Beyonders' powers, becoming God Emperor Doom. Now, the presence of this comic and Kevin Feige's suggestion to Ryan Reynolds about incorporating the idea of anchor beings in the movie tells me that Avengers Secret Wars will be heavily based on this comic. I'll make a separate video talking about this in a great detail. Now, we have a ton of hidden details and Easter eggs inside the Void, so let's break them all down. We see the CN Tower from Toronto, Captain America's shield from the Nick Spencer comics, an old-fashioned winged Thor helmet, a shield helicarrier, half-buried 20th Century Fox logo, a circus tent potentially referencing Loki Season 2, the corpse of a Leviathan, and the Golden Gate Bridge. Deadpool and Wolverine start fighting, and one detail I caught is that they added more blood and gore into scenes that we've already seen in the trailers. And that's why folks never judge a movie merely based on trailers. Wolverine crawls on all 4 limbs, and notice he literally cuts both of Deadpool's guns in half. And that's when I realized, boy oh boy, are we gonna see some groundbreaking action in this movie. Because in Hugh Jackman's entire 25 years career as Wolverine, he has never crawled on both hands and legs at the same time, just like an actual Wolverine. Deadpool stops the fight by making a promise that he will help Wolverine get back to his world and fix everything. And then arrives, surprise surprise, Johnny Storm, with Chris Evans reprising his role after 17 years. He does the superhero landing, and we're all led to believe this is a variant of Captain America. The shawl around his neck, the red cloth on his sleeves were all there to cover his Fantastic Four uniform underneath. Even Deadpool thinks this is Captain America, as he has literally seen his face on the TVA monitors. But when Chris Evans says to Pyro, "You see anyone running, Dick for brains?" that's when Deadpool tilts his head and turns towards him, realizing something is amiss, as that isn't Captain America's typical language. And I love how the first thing Deadpool said to Chris Evans was that we're basically allowed to do anything in this movie except for cocaine on camera, and that on-camera part is what made me laugh. But Chris Evans says, "Flame on," and we realize this is John Johnny Storm from 2005's Fantastic Four. This scene establishes that different characters can share the same appearance, like Chris Evans playing both Johnny Storm and Captain America. It also reinforces the idea that one character can have multiple faces, similar to the three Peter Parkers in No Way Home who all look different. This concept likely influenced Marvel's decision to bring back Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom, which I'll explore in a different video. And that wraps up the first 40 minutes of the movie. I went to the theater to welcome Deadpool in the MCU, but I ended up bidding farewell to the Fox X-Men universe. The movie's rewatchability is so high that I could easily watch it over and over again. The thrilling intro, Deadpool meeting multiple Wolverine variants, epic battles between Deadpool and Wolverine, numerous delightful cameos, Wolverine donning his mask, and the action-packed fight with the Deadpool core, along with Wolverine's shirtless scene while saving the universe. This film truly encompasses all the elements of a great superhero movie. This is the longest breakdown I've done so far, and it's only part 1. Can you imagine? Parts 2 and 3 will have significantly better and impactful hidden details and Easter eggs, because the movie mostly takes off in the second and third act. So make sure to subscribe to my channel so you'll get notified when I drop part 2 next week. Now, if you have enjoyed this breakdown, then please give me a thumbs up, and if you have spotted any hidden details or Easter eggs yourself, please share them in the comments below. I will pick some of the best details and feature them in my next video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter to get updates about my videos. Till then, I'm Gordon Reynolds, and I'll see you lads in the next one.